Thanks very much. Thank you so much for coming out today, and thank you for Sol for letting us use the space. I'm just going to give a very simple introduction. Skyline was an idea that's been around for a couple of years, and it's a very simple idea. What would happen if communities were asked to manage the landscape around? And I'm focusing on the South Wales valleys. What would happen if communities were given the ability to manage that landscape? How would they do it? What would it be? What is the community vision for 10, 50, maybe 100 years' time? And how would that differ from what there is now? Partly, my thinking is inspired by what's happened in Scotland. And I'm going to introduce in a moment Alistair McIntosh, who's one of the leaders of the land reform movement in Scotland. Is going to say a little bit about that. I've had the pleasure to go to a couple of the Scottish land reform projects, and they've been for 2 decades or more, they've been managing and running landscape that's been creating jobs, stimulating investment, and bringing a sense of pride back to places in a very strong way. We've managed to get the financial support from the Friends Provident Foundation, and with that we started the Skyline project. It's a feasibility study. It is only a feasibility study, but I'm hoping, we'll talk about that later, it'll lead on to something much, much more. And with that money, we've been able to work with the 3 communities, and you'll be introduced to them later, to Treherbert, to Caerau, to Innisowin, and a whole bunch of really talented people who've been able to help and support with the project. Artist conveners, place-based facilitators, shared assets, Sustainable Places Institute, the Wildlife Trusts, helping us ask all of the questions and answer some of the questions. And that's really what we're here for today. We're here today for you to find out some of the answers of that 9-month feasibility study. But we're not going to tell you the answers. You're going to have to find it out for yourself. So the little green tags you can see on some of the people, those are the people. There's too many people to introduce you to. But if you've got a green tag on, you've been involved in the project. And people who haven't, then you need to go up and you need to ask them, what's been involved? What have you done? What have you made of the Skyline process? Some of you are community members, some of them are some of the agencies that have been working for it. The feasibility study just sought to answer 4 questions. They're big questions, but just 4 questions. Is there any demand from the communities that we've been working with to manage the landscape around the town? Because without that, what's the point? That's the big question. What would it look like? Do they want to do it? Are there sustainable business models for doing this? Because if there aren't, what we end up with, we talk to communities for 9 months, we end up with a list of projects, which is basically a shopping list for grant funding for the future. So there have to be, we've concluded, sustainable. There has to be an income stream which the community can own and can invest in the projects that they want to do. It has to be sustainable. The third question is, can we do this in a way which doesn't damage but enhances the environment? So can we break that link between development and ecological damage? Can we create wealth? Can we create local jobs? Can we also at the same time enhance the environment? And that's been one of the big questions that we've been trying to ask. And lastly, the 4th question is, how do you govern a project of this scale? How do you get community consent for landscape scale change? And those are the questions. Now, I'm not going to tell you the answers to those things. Some of the answers, some of the people with green flashes on know, and you're going to have to talk to an awful lot of them to get a big picture of what's happening. I'll just quickly tell you what is going to happen today. In a moment, there's a short film that Mike Erskine's produced, which puts better than I can. It's a few minutes long, and it shows you some of the people who've been involved in the project speaking about it in its own right, and that will be next. We'll then have Alistair will be talking to us, and there'll be a Q&A with Alistair at the end of that. We then, at some stage, we will then be asking you to go, we've brought the 3 communities into this space. So we've got Treherbert, we've got Innisowin, we've got Caerau here, and we're going to ask each of you to go to those places, to each of those places, find out what's going on, find out what the vision is, and talk and ask the questions. While that's happening, don't forget there's tea and coffee and some cakes there. We will reconvene at some point, and we'll have an open Q&A to ask questions about what's been going on. And for those who can still hear at the end, There's some cider and some perry and some apple juice and some savoury snacks to sustain you after a long afternoon. I'm going to end just with 3 personal reflections from this process. It's been an amazing process, and I've been privileged to be working with such talented and hard-working, dedicated people from all of the communities and from the other people who've been helping us. But three reflections, 1 significant moment, 1 surprise, and 1 unfulfilled promise. The significant moment, and I think a lot of you share this, was we took a minibus of people up to Scotland to see some of the community forest projects. And we spent 1 day, it was the eve before Storm Callum hit, it was last October. It was beautiful weather, the next day it was terrible. And we went to the Kilfinnan Community Forest, and there were about 15 of us on the trip. And what that community, to see for yourselves what that community had achieved in 8 years, the forest crofts, the sustainable housing, the sawmill business, the woodfield business, the forest school environment, the art projects in the woodlands had been done in 8 years was quite staggering. And I remember at the end, we came back together at the end of the day, we sat down and there was a kind of, oh my God. And it was almost a bit overwhelming because actually this has just been an idea. And actually you suddenly realised it can be done. It had been done. And what they'd achieved was quite a moment. That, for me, and I think for several others who went, that was a very significant moment. The surprise, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise, but it was a surprise in all 3 of the communities that we worked with. Yes, it's about jobs. Yes, it's about creating wealth and keeping that wealth within the local economy. But it's also, and just as importantly, about habitat improvement and environmental benefit. And it's about cultural spaces. And for some of us who work in agencies, trying to balance the competing demands of the Wellbeing Act can be really hard, and we wonder how it can be done. And somehow those communities instinctively, they was just, they squared off the competing challenges without even thinking about it, because it's their place, and they wanted all of those things to be achieved, and that really struck me. Okay, lastly, an unfulfilled promise. So we had an event, Peak organised an event for us in Treherbert in October last year. And we had 80 to 100 people through the door, all members of the community. We did some remembering of what the place had been like in the past. We did some imagining of what the place could be like in the future. It was a fantastic event. And an older lady came up to me at the end, and she pokes me in the chest in that direct kind of Valleys way, didn't know her name, pokes me in the chest and says, "You've got to tell them it's a lie." And she pointed to that poster, that banner which was up on the wall. Imagine a future where our community owned the land in this valley. And she says, "You've got to tell them it's a lie." And I well, what do you mean? And she said, "Well, there are all these projects, all these ideas, they come, they go, all the money, and nothing ever changes. Nothing ever happens. And this is going to be another one, isn't it?" And we sat down, we chatted for 15 minutes, and we talked her through the project, what we'd seen in Scotland. It's a feasibility study, yeah, it's a thing. And I promised I would do all we could to this time make it work. And I think about that conversation that we had and how significant it is. And maybe, just maybe, we've been giving money, initiatives, projects, maybe we've been giving the wrong things. Maybe it's control. What we haven't been giving is control over the future of that landscape. And if we can give that, then maybe there is a different future. So I have an unfulfilled promise to that lady to see, and I'm going to need to get your help, see if we can deliver that in the future. Thanks very much.